We took an expensive designer wedding gown and used color-change dye on it with the hopes that it would turn from traditional ivory indoors to a party time pink when the bride steps into the sun. Let's see if the project scores a perfect 10 or if it falls flat and ruins the gown. A charitable organization gave me this gown to upcycle into something that could be sold to support their mission. If I botch this dress with this innovative and untested dye, they will receive no money from the gown. But if it turns out amazing, and with the help and intention of the internet, then they can sell it to support their shelter that gets women and children back on their feet after some of the darkest events of their lives. I feel compelled to take this risk. I really want to help their cause. While we work on changing this dress, let me tell you the unbelievable love story of the model that I hired for this project. The parallels between the change that this dress would go through and the changes my model went through are uncanny. It's a story that seems too good to be true. Love is all about transformation. This bride grew up riding horses through Virginia fields, became a figure skater in her teens, and then became a professional figure skater who tours around the world. She was a solo skater working full-time on a cruise ship. After a few tumbles in her quest for love, she had almost given up hope. How would she find the one when floating around the world in the middle of nowhere? Thankfully, one excursion was different. She met another ice skater, and the familiar feeling of love was stirred in her once again.
Neither of us were looking for anything, and it's a tiny spark that grew over time that I did not expect at all.
His voice had a casual Australian swagger to it, but his technique on ice was refined perfection. During that cruise, her fears of getting hurt again thawed. By the end of the tour, their connection was undeniable. They were determined to keep in touch and maintain a long-distance relationship as their next ship assignment sailed them in opposite directions. It would take hours of agonizing, soul-searching phone calls to come up with a plan to be able to be together again. This is a Jenny Yu designer dress. She is known for her work with rich silks, luxurious chiffons, and delicate laces. Her designs are elegant and refined. This gown is a silk A-line with a fashion-forward slit and a dropped waist. The silk makes dyeing it risky. While cotton loves to absorb dye, silk sometimes doesn't take dye evenly, or the dye can sometimes fail to set unless the silk is brought to near boiling temperatures. We can't put this gown through that. Also, this dye is very different from traditional dyes. This is truly an experiment. As if that's not enough of a challenge, this dye requires one more special detail. The dress has to hang in total darkness while it dries with the dye on it. According to the instructions, the color cannot be activated while it is setting. It doesn't say what will happen if it gets exposed to light while it's drying, and I don't want to find out. The pressure is mounting. We need this dress to sell when we are done with it. I opted for a dip dye process for this dress. The gown has to be spotlessly clean of oils and then undergo a total submersion into a warm dye bath. I'm also adding some extra matching silk fabric so that we can embellish the gown after the dye has been applied. We want this to be one of a kind, in every sense. If you're interested in trying this die out for yourself, I have a coupon code for you. The code expires and YouTube is forever, so if the code is still active when you see this, you'll find it pinned in the comments. Now for more of the love story. After the agony of working through a long-distance relationship for a year and a half, they were both about to lose their minds. Night after night of phone calls were contributing to the heartache that only a long-distance relationship can give. Finally, they had another season of time together that fate seemed to arrange. He had a back injury and was recovering in the States while she was between ship assignments. "I don't think I can do this anymore," she said one night. He let out a heavy sigh. "I've been thinking. I've come up with a way that we can be together again. Would you consider, while I'm here recovering, maybe let me train you on pair skating?" That was a big ask. She had never skated pairs before. And on top of that, after her failed relationships that broke her heart and her faith in love, this was a lot to consider. Just dating in person was a big step. But this would mean working together in long-term assignments as well. What if they didn't work out as a couple or as skaters? It would be absolute misery. She was going through taking baby steps in trust to having to completely put her life, career, well-being, and even her body into his hands. A bad fall hurts. She tossed in her bed that night. She rolled over to switch sides as often as her mind did. After a few nights of restless sleep, she told him over breakfast one morning, "I'm in. Let's do it." It was time to practice, and the same bravery that allowed her to open her heart again allowed him to lift her into the air for the first time. There were nervous technicalities to think about, but once she found her balance, it was exhilarating. There was no going back. She was in love. Her trust had to grow, both in her relationship emotionally and with believing that he wouldn't drop her. They learned to move and sync as skaters, and more importantly, they aligned their personal lives. Their trust grew into a desire for a lifetime commitment, and they eventually married at a beautiful vineyard in the States. Let's take a cue from them and go all in with this dress experiment. We've done our best and followed every step of the instructions. There's nothing left to do but try it out. Now for the moment of truth. Watch this gown turn in the sun. This gown was an absolute win. Do you want a traditional ivory look for your indoor ceremony, but want your dress color to be the life of the party? It's so interactive, fun, and the best of both worlds. Heads were turning throughout this shoot. Also, the dye manufacturer, Solar Dust, has graciously offered a limited time coupon. If you want to go all in on your dress, you can also dye your own gown by using this fascinating product. I put the code in the pinned comment. In my next challenging video, I go into even more detail of how to dye with this magical, amazing stuff, and even how to paint designs into the gown with it. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss that.